how do you feel question. That's how our clients think. Like in fact, if you talk with sellers right now, they would say, a lot of them would say, well, I think it's going to be a buyer's market. So I got to sell my house now because in the fall or winter, it's going to be a buyer's market. We have a long way to go before we're in a buyer's market. In fact, we have longer of a place to go than we had 4 months ago. We are more in a seller's market today than we were then. But what does that mean? What does being in a seller's market mean? Being in a seller's market doesn't mean that values are just taking off. We're talking about days in the market. We're talking about terms. We're talking about, but it also has a direct relation on demand levels too. But by no stretch, I mean, you can see here, in fact, on this chart, the only time we were in Baltimore City, we were seeing pricing declines from mid-2018 up until the pandemic hit. And that actually correlates with the only time that we found ourselves in a balanced market as far as this formula goes. And in Baltimore County, we haven't seen that. Baltimore County has been steady increasing prices, since 2012. But since 2019, since the pandemic, we have seen inventory levels just get smaller and smaller. We need inventory levels to be 4 times what they are right now before we find ourselves in a balanced market. I don't think that we will get there in the next year, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some slight declines in pricing, even with us being in a seller's market. We could be at a 3-month supply and still see depreciation occur. And I think that would be kind of a phenomenon. Like, I don't know if that's happened before, but we might be living through it. Good question. Okay, I don't bite. Anybody? Anybody?
Curiosity question. For someplace like San Francisco, and you say the income is maybe $90,000, it's $1 million. Do they do 40-year mortgages? I'm just asking. I've heard of 40-year mortgages.
I don't think so.
I mean, 40-year mortgages are usually if there's a loan modification or an FHA style. So
Okay.
Yeah, the other piece, as far as one of the major differences between this market cycle versus the last one is that the amount of equity that's stored in people's homes right now is vastly different. I think, when we went in 2008, the average homeowner across the country had, and this again, an average, had about 5% equity. And as of May this year, when I looked into this, the average equity that the average homeowner held was about 22%. So vastly different. It means that, if the market goes down 10%, which is a big number for it to go down, but if it did, we're not going to be hit with the kind of foreclosure crisis that we saw 15 years ago, because people just turn their keys in. They're like, well, shoot, I'm under 5%. Why not just walk away? I'll take the next 5 years to rebuild my credit. So I don't think you'll see that. I think people will be able to hang on to their homes, which is a good thing. But it also means that inventory stays low.
So that's a question I have in regards to inventory. We see that inventory is at historical lows, and what is going to be the driving factor to change that? Is it new construction, or what needs to take place for us to see an uptick in inventory?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a great question. It's the one thing we didn't talk about at all here was new construction home starts, and they are at we're 10 years behind the curve on that. There was such a high rate of bankruptcy and consolidation in the new home builders business, that industry, from the effects of 2008. The industry has not recuperated. And as they continue to build, they have been building not high density. They've been building more on the luxury end. Part of it, I think, when you look at it on a local basis, like what needs to happen? Well, people who live in northern Baltimore County probably won't love to hear this, but there's a lot of undeveloped land. Right now there are policies in place to protect that land from being developed. And that's hurting the market. Without a doubt, I mean, you look around here, inside the Beltway or around the Beltway, where are there large plots of land where you can develop a cluster neighborhood like Mays Chapel that's affordable, or Lufton Farms, or Summit Chase? I'm just throwing out a couple that I grew up around. There aren't any. There aren't any. So if you go further out, and this is what's happened in other cities. I mean, Atlanta, where you're coming from, they just, just build out farther. That's but we have some environmental policies in place here that really make it very difficult to do that. There are groups, like nonprofit groups, that have been created to, I can't remember the full name of it, but it's like basically a group of people who want to continually block gas lines and water lines from being advanced past Lock Raven Reservoir. And as long as that's the case, you are on well and septic, and it makes it way more difficult to develop the land in smaller parcels. But I think that's the main answer to your question, Brandon, is changing some of the development rules. I think they're going to need to change. So that's not going to happen overnight.
No, it won't. But I guess the question to that is, we look for it in our business leading indicators to see that we're on the right path to something or a change coming. So in regards to inventory, what's the leading indicator that I could look at to see that a change is on the way?
I mean, knowing your absorption rate, figuring out whatever your target area that you are doing your business in, and looking at the number of homes that have sold. And like for our team in our area that we do that we specialize in, we split this up. We don't just look at like what's the absorption rate for Canton. We look at what's the absorption rate in Canton for homes between 200 and 300, and then between 300 and 400, between 400 and 600, and 600 and up. And guess what? They're very different. So another example of how specific real estate can be. But if I'm meeting with someone who's trying to sell a home for $650,000 in Canton, and they think it's like this crazy seller's market, well, guess what? The inventory levels are pretty balanced for that type of a property. But if you're trying to sell a $200,000 to $300,000 property in Canton, there's very little to choose from. That makes sense? All right.
First and foremost, we are honored to have, wow, I am extremely loud now. To have guests who have been in real estate long enough to see shifts, but who have been successful throughout these shifts. And they have used those shifts to drive their business forward continuously, but also build onto it to, one, to be better for their clients in any environment that they go into. So we've talked about it from an economic standpoint, but now let's talk about it from our business and what we went through. We're going to start the questions off, and we'll have this be a simple, instead of yes, no, thrive or I survived question, right? So when we went through the last shift, Kim, we'll start with you. Did your business thrive or did you just survive? Well, wait. Let me bring the audience in on this. So, what does thriving through a shift look like to the audience? What does that look like?
Your business grows more than when you first started.
All right, so your business grows through. What does survive mean to you?
Right.
To me, that's what it means. I didn't go out of business, right? So we stayed afloat. All right, so using that as the barometer, right? Through the last shift, did your business grow or did it maintain? And we know you're still here, so we know that now.
So I guess if that's.
Yep.
Correct.
Jennifer.
I'll be honest, I survived at especially in the beginning.
We need that. A lot of us feel like we're trying to survive every day.
Right.
Yes.
I don't think I.
You don't need one. You have one.
My own. Oh, so that's hot mic gets split out. Now, I barely would even consider what I went through between 2008 and survive. My real estate business survived in that I still was standing. But I had to get creative and figure out other ways to make money and get through it. Because if I relied solely on my real estate income, I would not have survived.
One more day and survive or thrive.
But a good one.
All right, so it's interesting, right? We see the Titans sitting up here and we think that they thrive through any market. And how humbling is it to hear that they just survived and they had to figure out a way to make through it. Now, Kim is the
So
exception.
let me clarify my thriving. I took it from what you said is I'm still in business, therefore I thrived, but we're talking
Well, no,
about a very small increase in business then,
Okay,
like very.
so small is good, small is good. So there was a slide that Mark showed earlier, and what was interesting to me was you see we go into a recession, but economic spending was still increasing at the very first part of it. When did you or when did your business recognize that you were in a shifting market?
So for me, I don't watch the news. So I always decide what's happening in the market based on what's happening with my clients. So when I start to see a change in behavior with my clients, so we were just talking about earlier. So you put a house on the market and the price that you think is right, and you have 50 offers and you sell it over, right? And then you put another one, the same neighborhood on, and you have 5 offers. And then you put another one, the same neighborhood on, and you don't have anybody coming for the first 3 days. Something's changed. Not everybody's on vacation. So I think it's watching what's happening in my business, even when it was tiny and even as it's grown. What's happening with your people in your space and the people around you. I mean, we're all here to share.
No.
That's how I feel.
So I realized the market was shifting about a year before it crashed. So it was the fall of 2007. Listings were sitting a lot longer. Buyer motivation was a lot lower. It's kind of like, pulling teeth, it wasn't, it's working. So that's when it first started showing up, and there was just a much slower, it was much of a slowdown compared to the spring, summer months. And then 2008, because the market didn't really start crashing until I want to say the fall. That's like when Lehman Brothers went down, the bank started failing. Yeah, so in January, just like in January, I started seeing appraisals starting to come in low. The gaps between buyers and sellers coming to terms was widening. So the sellers are still up here and the buyers were down here. So it was becoming more and more challenging to make deals and then keep the deals together. We were starting to see, like I said, appraisals coming under, zones getting declined. So it was like, you had to work harder to make a sale. Then after you made the sale, you had to work harder keeping it together. And sometimes they would fall through, no fault of your own. Sorry, loans decline. Oh crap, I'm not getting paid. You can't do anything really about that.
So to the audience, have you started to see that in your business right now? I know specifically I've had conversations with some agents where they brought that same sentiment up, that they've had a deal ready to go to closing, and then somehow, some way, the buyer's financing magically just fell apart. So are you starting to notice that as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's a question to the panel. Mindset wise, you noticed that happened in that time frame. We all survived, or we barely thrived. What was your initial mindset when you noticed that there is starting to be a divide between what the sellers want, what the buyers want, and what I'm closing and what I'm making? What was your mindset when that started to happen?
What are we talking about last time around?
Last time around.
Again, I'll be honest, panic. I think a lot of people were panicking, agents, lenders, buyers, sellers, just because we weren't prepared, first of all. And second of all, it came as a shock. I feel like a lot of people were in shock because the mindset before all of this started happening was we were invincible. Everyone was like, buy real estate, buy real estate. It's never going to go down. Like, you can't go wrong. Even the banks thought this. And, I think everyone just kind of panicked because we didn't have a plan in place. And there really was a huge lack of leadership as well. No one really knew what to do. It's kind of like the blind lead the blind, which is why I really say panic. So even if people didn't admit that, and I'm sure they were feeling it inside.
Yeah, I mean, I experienced a lot of panic, that's for sure. You know, but I didn't study the markets. I wasn't a student of the business. You know, probably a big part of why there was so much panic, because it was all, I worked at the time, my business was primarily with investors. Those were the first ones to dry up. They're the first ones to turn their keys in and send them to the banks. You know, so it was a shock. And it forced me to do something that I always wanted to do in this business anyway, which was put the investors aside and focus on retail. But it was, I was talking yesterday at our closing where the buyer got a check at closing, but it was like they had wired way too much money. So they got a check at the closing table. And we made a joke. I was like, man, I haven't seen a check at the closing table for a buyer since 2010. I mean, since 2007. You know, like I remember distinctly a client helping an investor client buy a home, and at settlement, he got keys and he got a check. It was a 106% financed loan for the purchase. So he got paid to buy the house. And would it be a shock to anybody if that house went to foreclosure? That's what happened.
So now I'm thinking a little deeper into back in that time. And I actually have 1 year in my 31 years in real estate that I sold 0 homes. I wasn't the first one. And so I think that the dates line up, that I probably put my head in the sand. I think I just didn't sell for a year. Not out of not trying, but like it just didn't come. And when I first started in the business, I really was taking business that came to me. I wasn't working my business. So that those dates line up. So I would say that I took a year off.
I kind of wish I took a year off. You know, as we were talking about that, I remember spent between buyers and sellers then, which was a crazy time where you had sellers who really, really wanted to sell, but couldn't afford to.
Right.
And you had buyers who really, really wanted to buy, but were really concerned that the values were just going to keep going down. So why buy now? We'll just move it. And that was a tough place. Did someone say that's where we are? Oh, I disagree. I disagree
No,
with
I'm
that.
saying buyers who are saying, I'll hold off, I'll wait, it's gonna come down, but we're
Well,
saying to them, no time soon.
yeah, I think that will be, and I think we are already starting to see. I think that's a short-lived. I think there was some initial shock after the spring market, which I predicted a while ago. I said, you know, this spring market is going to be healthy. I don't know, it's going to be stupid healthy, but after the dust settles is what I would tell people. After the dust settles in the spring market and reality starts to set in, you're going to see the market cool off. But I don't think you'll see I don't think you'll see that dichotomy again, at least out of this market cycle, where you have sellers who can't sell and buyers who are afraid to buy because values keep going down. So I don't think we're going to see that, at least in not a dramatic, prolonged effect.
And I think mindset is super important because one thing that can change the market is the seller's mindset. And so right now, when sellers think that prices are going down, even though we have data that says they're not, and they take that first offer that's not that great, well, now the neighbor has to too, right? So it's really important that we keep them in check. Like houses aren't selling in 3 days, but they are selling in less than 30. So hang on for 3 days and let nobody come, and then give it a week for people coming. So I think we just need to learn to smooth it.
Yes, yes.
Which, thank God, right?
So you guys got a lot of knowledge in this little bit of time. I'm going to try to unpack some of the statements that you made. But Kim, I think you shocked a lot of people when you said you had 1 year that you didn't sell a house. How much business what do you plan to do this year? Matter of fact, what is your goal for GCI this year?
We have 2 goals. My husband, for those of you that don't know, my husband is our CFO. So he has what he calls the realistic goal, and then there's the Kim Barton goal. So Jerry Barton's goal is 950, and my goal is 1.6 million
And who's closer?
in GCI. And right now we've hit our first 2 cycles, right? We're in Q3.
Third
Q3, we have celebrated 1 and 2, and Kim's winning.
So we talk about mindset, right? You go from, all right, we went to the ostrich, head in the sand, we didn't sell a house that year. And we all said that there was a bit of panic that set in our business. But now it turns around and your business is here. What did you learn? What tactics did you start using in your business to make it through that shit?
So for me, I was in the business for 26 years with another company where I never treated my business like a business. I just let whatever business came to me come. I mean, I'm a networker by like just born and bred that way. Like I'm a talker, I'm a connector, you know, that kind of thing was happening. But I never had a database until I came to Keller Williams. So 26 years, I grew a business with no database. It was all in my email. And then I came here and they're like, well, where's your database? And I'm like, what do you mean, my email? And so now we have, I don't even know, like 2,000-3,000 people in our database or something crazy, but like a solid 700 people that we market to death. And not in a bad way. We basically take them to lunch. Yeah, so one thing that I think that I do differently now than I did then is I am in relationship with my database. And that I think makes a difference between getting a one and done and getting the cousin, the friend, the neighbor, the babysitter. So that's what's organically growing us. We don't pay for leads. It's all organic growth through relationship with the database.
Yeah, I think Kim, I almost had exactly the same experience. I came to Keller Williams, I'm like, what's lead gen? You know, and it's like, yes, you know, of course I make calls to people, but I didn't call it that. I wasn't focused with it. I didn't set block time, and so forth. So those are definitely things that you can do. Run your business more like a business. Be proactive, put in a plan. Actually sit down and write out a business plan. Definitely have a database. Definitely organize it. Also keep track of your ROI on your marketing expenses. That's something that I was doing that really helped me through the shift was I was always keeping track of source of business. Someone calls me, great, you know, did someone refer you to me? Did you, see a sign? You know, how did you get my number? Make sure every single lead that you get, you put it in your database and you mark the source. With your sales, you want to review that quarterly, semi-annually, definitely annually. So what I was doing was I sat down, I actually had an assistant at the time, and she was like, oh my God, you spent so much money like on all these expenses. And I was like, wow, you're right. I didn't really realize that until I was doing my taxes. So I really sat down and I said, okay, let me see, where's my business coming from? What's my GCI for each source? How much did I spend for that? And what's that return on investment? And I had a list of several different sources and I cut off the bottom 3, the more expensive ones. So, and then you also have to see which ones are time consuming as well. So I was doing a ton of networking. I actually cut back on business networking because it was huge time. But stick with that friends and family. You can't go wrong there, and past clients. That's I think I have like a 70-time ROI on past clients, just past clients. Repeat and referral business. So you definitely want to cut back on expenses and invest your time and your marketing dollars into things that are going to make you money and make you profitable, most profitable. So we all talk about GCI. My business coach said, who cares about your GCI? How much profit do you want to make? Let's work back from there. Because you can have a high GCI and spend like everything you make, right? So that made me feel so much better. I'm like, oh, I don't need this crazy GCI number. As long as I hit my profit goal, then I'm happy. So what can I do to increase my profit? Maybe I can cut some things here. Maybe I can just focus on a bigger ROI. So hopefully that's helpful because that was big for me.
Okay, can we toot your horn a little bit? So we talked about Kim's GCI. What about your profit increase? So last year, your year-over-year profit increase, how much was there in growth on that?
Okay, so from 2020 to 2021, I'm trying to think. I went from, so I'm not quite Kim's level. She's a rock star apparently. But I went from like 11 million to 17 in 1 year time. And again, it really came down to, I hired a coach, a MAPS coach. So I mean, that really helped me a lot. It was someone that really held me accountable, really forced me to look at my numbers and evaluate them and make adjustments. So I would encourage everyone to do that. Keep track of your numbers and look at them every single week and set goals for yourself. And if you don't hit your goals, and say, okay, what can I do differently this week? Like, why didn't that happen? And change it up, you know, so that way, and if you do that every week, then, you know, think about it. If you wait to the end of the year to do that, like, what's the difference there? Right? It gives you time to make those adjustments along the way. I think it was one of the ALC clinics I went to where they were talking about airline pilots. Like, they know adjustments, like yeah,
95%
yeah.
of the time.
exactly. So like they have to like keep track of it like down to the millisecond, right? Because even if they just a few seconds goes by, they're missing the orbit by like, you know, thousands and millions of miles. I don't know, something crazy. But that just like gives you some perspective there to keep track of your numbers. And you can hit your goals better. So that's what helped me with my goals. And I have over a 60% profit margin. So, you know, like in Marie, it's like 35%. Forget that 35%, you know? Yeah, it's over 60%. So that's because I don't spend a lot of money on marketing.
We
Like,
gotta
I
say it
focus on the
again,
stuff.
60%
Yeah.
profit margin.
Yeah, I really tap into my past clients, guys. I get 50% of my business from past clients. I'm not talking about referrals, repeat, excuse me. And then referrals on top of that, bring it to about 85%. So that's how I keep my expenses down is, yeah, I make a lot of money, and I don't just spend it to get it. So that's like always makes me happy.
That's a wonderful tactic.
Yeah.
Mark, for you, what tactics did you learn coming out of that shift that has changed your business, changed your mindset?
Well, I think resiliency. I feel like if I can get through that, then I mean, I think, you know, God willing, that's the worst market we'll ever be a part of. And if I got through that, I can get through it. So that was the mindset piece. It really wasn't, you know, it's so funny you guys talk about database. Databases, there's I sit down and talk with, and that's like all I talk about is data stuff. And you know, it still shocks me how many good producers are out there that don't have a database. And it's such an opportunity, really, for any agent who's doing good business without one. It's not to beat yourself up over it, but it's just to look at it as a great opportunity. Right? So that, I mean, pouring into my database, becoming, I spend hours on my database every day. My database is nut. And lead gen, you know, that's another thing. Like, I never lead gen until 2016. You know, prior to that, I was always so busy. I was too busy for lead gen. Anyone ever felt that way? I don't got time for that. But I have made that, now it's like 6 years we got running here, where it has become such an automatic in my day, where between 9 and 11 every day, and I can't even say every day, I want to be honest, there are a couple days every once in a while I slip, we have a cheat day where things come up, but really 9 to 11 is carved out for lead gen, and it's just become an automatic habit, and it's been a habit of mine. It's, I think, become a real habit of those on our team, and it's just part of our thing. That environment didn't exist anywhere else. I think that was what really intrigued me. As a wait a minute, so they all come in for 2 hours and they call. Like, what do they call? database. I'm like, well, what do they say? You know, and then at the time it was like, you know, some of the things that I heard were like actually really uncomfortable for me. And they still are, like, they just support my brand, like to call them, or, you know, some of the trainings was like, all right, call them and say, hey, you're sorry that you have lost touch. Do you know anybody that's looking for it? And I was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. Like, but I have been so good over the years, and it just is repetition and consistency. I mean, I think consistency is the biggest thing. It's like once you start doing it, you kind of get in a mode where you're not even thinking about what you're doing anymore. You're just doing it. And you know, now it's, you know, I have so many little things to start a conversation with an old lead or a client of mine who bought a house 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I mean, my favorite one is like, hey, I was actually driving down your street, and I'm like literally sitting like right here. Yeah. I was just driving down the street like 9 o'clock in the morning. And I just thought of you, and I just wanted to see how you're doing. It's been a while since we talked, and boom, we're like off to the races. The awkwardness is gone, and the appreciation for me thinking of them play up. And I do not end with, and by the way, who do you know that's looking to buy or something? Like, I don't do that. You know, it's very similar to how I talk to realtors, even outside of this brokerage for that matter. Like, you know, we don't press people. You know, we want to do things like this. It just provides so much good value to whether it's our clients who are buying and selling, or our agents here, right here. Like, we just want to be the resource. So when there's a need and there's an opportunity to do more, we're the one.
So it's been good. Let me get a show of hands. Have you heard yourself on stage yet? I don't have a database. I don't really know how to lead gen. I was worried about the shift coming up. I wanted to take a year off. Have you heard something that you've echoed to yourself with the three that are on stage right now, from where they were then to where they are now? And we see the tactics that they're going through, right? Lead gen and how to develop. Well, let's ask a question through it. Mark kind of made light of it, not knowing what to say during lead gen and goes forward. Who here, show of hands, we're all family. Who struggles with lead generation, or who doesn't know what lead generation actually is? Sharon, we're going to call on you right now. What scares you about lead gen, or what do you think lead gen is right now? So what scares you about lead gen, or what don't you know about it? You got three experts right here.
There isn't really much that scares me about it. It's just that, one, I'm a career agent, and I struggle with figuring out when is the best time to do it and where to get the information to lead gen. Like I reach out to family and friends and people on social media, but nobody's interested in buying or selling a home right now, or it's not affordable to them, etc. So my struggle is figuring out where to outsource aside from those individuals that I'm reaching out to. Who else can I reach out to? How can I get contact information to reach out to other people? And I guess making time. I definitely do things on my lunch break, which is only an hour at work. And then I don't feel comfortable by the time I get home. It's about 6:15 in the evening. And I don't feel comfortable contacting people after a certain hour. So those are my struggles as far as that's concerned.
Can I ask you a question? If I asked you to come to my house tomorrow night at 6:30 for a listing appointment, would you find time?
At 6:30?
6:30 tomorrow night, if you come by, you can list my house. Are you free? That's how you have to look at lead gen time, because it's a set appointment that you cannot miss. And can I put Melissa on the?
Absolutely.
So Melissa took a little class last week. There was a bowl that didn't happen, and they gave her one activity to do, and she's been doing it ever since. It was literally a 3-minute. Tell them what happened was.
So can you hear me? In the class, they said to text 10 people in your phone and say, hey, I'm taking real estate class. Can I come by your house to give you a free equity analysis or CMA? Are you up for it? And I had about 6 people write back, yes, absolutely, when can you come? And I've done, I think, 4 or 5 now.
And what have you
Well, wait,
learned?
there's
And I got a listing appointment yesterday.
Oh,
He
wait,
just
there's
signed
more.
it.
There we go.
So, it's working. I've had people say they're retiring in the next year. They'll definitely reach out. So my goal now is just to stay top of mind.
And you're learning, she's learning about her database. First lady we went to see, planning to move in 2 years. She didn't know it. And her father just passed away and she has to sell her father's house sometime next year.
And you
That
know what?
doesn't happen if you don't pick up the phone.
And to add to that too, she wasn't asking them for anything.
Right.
She was offering something of value.
Some contribution.
So that I think is a key distinction in lead gen, in effective lead generation. Go in there with the mindset of exactly what Kim just said. You come from contribution. There are so many people that I call every day that I know bought a house like a year ago or 2 years ago. Like I know when I'm dialing and the phone is ringing that person is not going to be looking to buy or sell.
I've been reading the Keller Williams, what's called Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and one thing really stuck out to me, and it said most people only have the mental space for 2 to 3 real estate agents in their mind, and your goal is to be in that 2 or 3.
Yep.
That really stuck out to me.
Yeah, there's a couple books that I think everybody should be reading right now. So if you haven't read MRBA, definitely read that. And for right now, it's very fitting, Shift by Gary Keller. So I'm rereading that right now as well.
And that actually brings up something that you said earlier. And you specifically said going through the last shift, there was widespread panic. And you said part of the reason why there was panic was no leadership, no education. There wasn't a knowledge of what was taking place. And now as we sit here, Mark, you said you weren't studying the market before, but we can see by what you go through now. We didn't even scratch the surface of some of the conversations that we get into to know that you're a student of the marketplace. So what have you guys put in terms of education, knowledge, and training? We know lead gen, but how did you incorporate that? Where did you learn it from, and why did it become so valuable for you?
Nice question. That first.
I gotta,
For me, well, switching brokerages to here. Then I think high-level conversations with people that were in business where I was. So I wasn't always where I am today. So I was in masterminds with people at whatever level I was at as I went along. And then I think the #1 training that Keller Williams has to offer is bold. I hear there's something like it coming up soon. I'm sure that Mark's gonna tell us about that in the end, but that taught me Keller Williams mindset. It taught me all the activities, and I took it 4 times, and many things didn't happen until the 3rd or 4th time. Right. So repetition for things that are good. I've read Shift, I've read MREA, I've read The One Thing, and I'm always looking to see what else I can read.
Yeah, definitely bold. I took it 4 or 5 times as well. And I was reading that flyer, it does look very similar. So yeah, it's all about breaking down your goals. So, you know, I think, sorry, what's her name? Not being sure it's the right time. I would just completely take that out of your head. You know, you can try different times, but I find sometimes I might call in the morning, sometimes I call in the evening, and, you know, I could not reach anyone, you know, either those times, or a different day, I reach someone in the morning, I reach someone in the evening. So there's really no perfect time. You just have to make the calls. And it's all about keeping track of how many people you need to talk to get an appointment. So it's okay. I think we all have a fear of rejection. I really feel like that's a big part of it. We don't want to make the calls because we don't want to be told no. You know, it's very discouraging, right? But keep in mind, every single no, what if I told you after 19 no's, your 20th conversation is going to be a yes? Would that make you more motivated? So, you know what, 6:30, I'm calling 10 people real quick because, you know, I didn't make my 10 calls today. Yeah, it really should be 20. But I understand if you're dual career, you know, it's all about, again, just saying, okay, how much time do I have? How many contacts do I want to make? So I keep track on a spreadsheet every day, how many people I talk to. And it's not negotiable. So, hey, yeah, sometimes days get crazy, but guess what? At the end of the week, I'm going to still hit those numbers because I need to talk to that many people to get my 2 or 3 appointments every week. Because if I don't get my 2 to 3 appointments every week, I'm not meeting my goals. And how's that going to make me feel? Not taking your family to Disney World, like what's important? So your goals and your motivation for making those calls has to be bigger than your fear and your fear of rejection. So I think like that's really what it boils down to. So it's the mindset and then the actual numbers. How many people do you actually talk to? And one last thing I'll mention, as the shift increases, you will have to talk to more people to get the same amount of business. You might even have to talk to more people to do less business. So think about that. And if the market, you know, is still good, what's the worst thing that happens by talking to more people?
Business
It's gonna be more fun. So it can never be a wrong tactic.
Yeah, well, first, you know, I know when I started, like my time, 6 to 8, 6 to 9. First of all, I have no problem with the idea of lead generating up until 9 o'clock. Like 9 o'clock is my cutoff, where I feel like if I'm calling after 9, it's too to be calling for lead gen. But at 8:45, I got no problem. And I'll tell you what, in my years of doing that, which to be completely transparent, I haven't done it too often lately, mostly because I concentrate my lead gen in the morning, and you know that's like I got 3 little kids now, so I gotta put them on bed, and you know it's a very tough time for me. But why are you calling me so late? So I'll tell you, it's a great time. In fact, I would even suggest that 6 to 8 is probably more effective time to be lead generating than 9 to 11. I do it 9 to 11 because I know if I don't get it done first thing in my day, then I don't get it done. And like it's really easy to get distracted or derailed. But 9 to 11, I get it done. No, I know I'm listening. You know, I think that's like part of my dialogue with our leaders. So not as much of my business comes from, as a percentage at least, comes from repeat referral. We have been, I think, really aggressive about getting business that's completely outside of our sphere as well. And with that requires different tactics. And so, you know, one example of that was that I was going on a lot of FISBO appointments and Inspired appointments. And I started doing this about 3-4 years ago. And I went into that process thinking, I'm like, man, I'm good. I like 90-95% of my listing appointments I go on, I get. To all of a sudden going into a stranger's house and getting my butt kicked. And like my conversion rate went from like 90-95% to 50%. And first of all, the only way I knew that is because I tracked it. So I can't tell you how, I mean, it's the MREA book is gold. You know, it really, it is not a menu of services here. It is a model that really can ignite your business, will ignite your business if you are consistent with it. But I realized, all right, my conversion rate's out of whack. What am I doing wrong? You know, and then I started taking a look, dissecting more, like, you know, this is the thing that we have to do at every level of our business. You know, is it that I'm not making enough calls? Is it that I'm not setting up enough appointments? Is it that my conversation when I'm setting those appointments up is not solid enough because too many of them are canceling or not showing up? Is it that when I do show up, when we do have the appointment, is my conversion rate not right? You know, like having tracking for these things really, and it sounds exhausting, especially if you'd like to say, I'm not organized, I'm not this, I'm not that. First of all, take that negative language out of your head and flip it. You know, like whatever you think you aren't, start saying you are. Make it happen. And there's a great deal of power. It's not fluff. This isn't like foo-foo stuff. It's real. That's why when they talk about like that drunk monkey, stop saying like, you know, there's that like I don't know what to say, or nobody wants my calls at 6 o'clock. You know, like that. Take it out to like, man, people would love to hear it. Love to hear it. And you know what? When you call people, they will be so happy to hear.
That is
They're
so
home,
true.
they're happy, and they're ready
People-
to talk to me.
Yes, right. That's what they say, they're happy and they're ready to go.
So I have a question in regards to Legion, right? And no, I can't. I'm leaving it. So of course we talk about calls on a regular basis, right? That's the preferred method. But like, what do you feel about, I guess, a newer agent or an agent who's struggling with Legion to kind of start where they are instead of like, is it Melissa? I'm sorry, Melissa. So like Melissa made, she sent 20 text messages or 10 text messages and got 6. You have other people who may say, well, let me send DMs, right? And of course, the preferred method is to get them on the phone. So in regards to that, you have a newer agent or an agent who's struggling with lead gen. How do you feel about pretty much starting where they are, where they're comfortable, but it's still lead gen?
Are you asking, is it okay to lead gen through text messages?
Yeah, I mean.
Yes. Well, I think so. I mean, I think it's to be in conversation with your database, however that looks like for you, because you want to be genuine. So for Melissa, they told her to text, right? And so maybe she was like, awesome. Yeah. And then it becomes a conversation after that because we showed up at the house. Right? So she set the appointment through a text message, but you have to do what works. If you send a text message and nobody answers, then you have to call. I usually call first. You know, if I'm honest, I'm happy when they don't answer the phone, then I can text, right? But, hey, I was just calling because I was driving through your neighborhood and I was thinking of you, or whatever it is that you're calling. You know, your birthday is coming up. Do you know that in Command, it ranks your percentage of like for every
Field.
like how many fields you filled in, but it's like a percentage, the health, thank you. There's a health percentage for every contact that you have. That changed my life. Because I was like, I have a great database and I know everybody. And then I was like, oh, 20%. What don't I have? All I had was their name and their phone number. It's like, well, I probably should at least get their email. Stalk people. And so that was huge. I found out I knew everybody's birthday. I knew their names, their husband's names, their kids' names. I had their Facebook address. I had no idea what they do for a living. And I was like, oh, wow, maybe I don't know them as well as I think. So I had to train myself to like bring that into conversation because I thought people don't want me to ask that. That's the limiting belief. They don't want, people love to talk about themselves. But I was like, that's rude for me to be like, so what do you do for a living?
It's so funny that you say that. Whenever I come back from a listing appointment or a buyer consultation, my husband always asks me, what do they do for a living? I'm like, crap, I don't know. I'm like, I guess I need to start, being interested and just like learning more about that. And so I make it a habit now to find that out. So funny that you say that. So I just wanted to touch on, it's not only numbers, but it's your scripts. So I think that, Corey, that's what you were basically referring to, right? Like, what do I say? How do I say it? Do I text it? Do I call? I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do it. It's whatever makes you feel comfortable. I think, talking to people first is the best thing. So if you're new in real estate, it's just a conversation of letting people know that. You're announcing that. You're not asking for business. You're just letting them know that you're in the business and reconnecting with them. So you just need to build those relationships. So I would say just think of it from that perspective. And kind of what I do sometimes is I'll send out a mass text and then follow up with calls, or sometimes I'll do the opposite way. I'll make calls, and if I don't reach them, the text is kind of like a voicemail. So the people that respond to me first are the ones that I call first, because I feel like, okay, they're more excited to hear from me, right? You're going to call the people you like first. So just get those conversations going to really, get everything flowing. And then it makes the other people you haven't spoken to in a long time, you're not as close to, a little bit easier.
I was gonna say something.
I was just gonna to answer your question. It's about what works. Like, 6 out of 10 text messages are responded to.
Right.
I would say stop calling and But I remember we had a young guy who joined our team for a short period of time, and when we were checking, he was having a hard time getting business up and running and getting appointments set. And he's in the office the same time as we were. He's always lead genning, but I barely heard him talking. And and come to find out that he was like, oh, he'll report his numbers. I contacted 20 people or 30 people today. And I'm like, man, he's contacting all these people. It's not setting appointments. And I come to find out that they were all texts and no one's responding to them. And I'm like, dude, that's not a contact. Yeah, it's a retrain, like re-explain that piece. And, explain to them that, like, look, if this isn't working, pick up the phone. And I think I think why that question even comes about is because you hear some people just adamantly about call.
Exactly.
Because, texting, the goal of the text is what? It's to make contact, it's to eventually have a phone call.
Right.
So by calling, you can make that phone call happen a little faster.
And I asked that question because when I talked to more agents who are struggling, right? There was a point in my business where my mouth, it's not big enough. No, but I asked that question because when I speak to a lot of newer agents or struggling agents, investors, whatever, right? And it's always a lot of times it comes down to the phone, and then like there's other forms of lead gen where you can at least start and not just say I'm not going to lead gen because I'm not picking up the phone. Because there was a moment in my business where I wasn't picking up the phone, and I wasn't gonna pick up the phone because I was scared. I was a punk. But I can admit that. But what I did, I created like this whole social media, how going to people's DMs, and that's how I started to get my business. But that's how and how I built it. And I'm just saying, just having those conversations where you have people or agents coming in, and it's like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm not going to lead gen. Script is definitely a big part of that, to knowing exactly what to say, what they're gonna say. I just wanted you guys to. see
Yeah,
that.
and I know someone else has a question here.
Well,
but
I wanted,
I do wanna,
but I want to follow up on something, but yeah.
I gotta say something important here, because
We're in full realtor.
this
Everybody wants to
is,
talk.
I'm not nearly as soft on that approach, because to me, if you're gonna succeed in this business, you have to be good on the phone. And there is no better way to test the will and the willpower, the fight in somebody to say, pick up the phone, get comfortable. You're not comfortable, get comfortable. I would not for a second bring someone on our sales team that had such call reluctance that they didn't do it. I don't care if you have call reluctance. Like, I've had it too. But to get through it, to just do it anyway. And so there's a lot of different ways to it. Social media is one, but I would say I'm very passionate about the fact that you got to pick up the phone, you got to be good on the phone, and just do it. Don't like ease your way into it.
And in person's fine too. That's something I think we all kind of overlook a lot. Take advantage of family gatherings, parties, like social, community events, like anything like that. Like face to face is perfect. Just like you guys have to be tactful. Like you do your real estate with a company. Like I think we're like well as realtors now, like someone mentions buying selling the house, you're like, hey, why don't we do that?
That's the thing,
Like,
I'm
but
using
obviously
to
do
get
it
face to face,
tactfully
that's
and
why I
naturally, and just try to make it part of your conversation.
You can go visit for sale by owners.
Yeah.
That's a good way to get in front of sellers. Right now, because the market was super hot, a lot of people try to do it on their own. We have 2 FISBOs this week. So go visit them while they're on the market, make the relationship while they're on the market. Hey, I'm new, I'm just trying to get to know the area. Chat, and then you can talk. But they're gonna ask you all the questions that someone else is gonna ask you on the phone, so practice on them. It's free.
How do you handle those potential buyers that say they're a little afraid to buy right now because of the interest rates? They're expecting the interest rates to go back down to the 2-3%, et cetera, right? How do you handle those that say, I'm gonna wait a year or two until XYZ happens?
So the average person in this area wastes $25,000 to $30,000 a year renting. So even if you bought something now at a high interest rate, which by the way, I'll tell you how old of a lady I am. When I first got into business, interest rates were 12%. Money is still cheap. You got to get these things in people's brains. They've got to stop believing the lie. Money is still cheap. It is cheaper than renting. And let's say you buy something today, you got to give an example. You buy something today and you pay too much for it, and the market goes down by 5% next year, and you have to sell because you're leaving town. You take a bath of $5,000. You still didn't waste that other $25,000 you're wasting renting. So you have to put it in perspective. They're already so long.
I do think though that I always dig more. I know you want to answer the question, or do you have a question?
No, I want to, there's a phrase that I heard someone say, and it is just stuck in my head now, and I love it.
Check it out.
And it is, you marry the house, you date the rate. Because if you go and you fall in this house, guess what? 1 year, 2 years, nobody has a crystal ball, so why would you risk losing that house you love if you're marrying that? The rate, you can refinance, you're just dating it. You're not marrying it.
So if you go to my Facebook page, which is just Facebook.com/the Dela Cruz team, I did this exact answer to that question 2 days ago. And it's because I was reading Ships. So I've been waking up every morning, reading, several pages of Ships, and it's just like a light bulb went off. And it started out with, did you know that if someone waits a year to buy a house, okay, if a house price drops 10%, it's immediately nullified by a 1% interest rate increase. And it actually gave a side-by-side breakdown. I ran some of my own numbers and put together a little side-by-side spreadsheet, took a screenshot, uploaded that as my photo. So the example was a $300,000 house now at 5.5% versus a $270,000 house at 6.5%. Would you believe it that the monthly payment's the same? Within $3. And it's almost exactly the same scenario at every single price point. You can run a lot of different scenarios. It's going to be very minuscule difference between the monthly payments. So basically someone is gambling when A, the price is going down, and B, for the interest rates to stay steady or drop.
They're even gonna wanna move.
Right.
Wanna move for a lot of year rent.
And then the other thing is that $24,000 they just paid in rent, that was the third thing I did, paying $2,000 a month. Hey, they can buy an FHA house and that's their down payment for those costs. So they would actually need the price to drop 24,000 just to break even on that money too. So no matter how you look at it, it's almost always.
That's before you get
losing money by
into-
waiting.
That's before you even get into the tax implications for writing off your interests and your insurance and your taxes, your property taxes. Those are all tax deductible, whereas rent is not. I mean, you know. But I would say, oh. Eric's gonna get it there.
Okay,
Yeah.
first off, brilliant idea on the, what was it? Take a real estate class. Can I give you a free home assessment? Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So hats off to you for that. So that being said, I'm new to the area, so my network is not here in Baltimore. But I do have a lot of friends that have more than I do, and they like to invest, but right now, finding inventory is a pain in the butt. So I need to get over this hurdle here. Not afraid to speak on the phone, by no means. I've failed for 25 years. The problem that I'm having is, what are the top 3, if you can, maybe one from each, where to get leads, to build a database of a local network. And then second to that, what are maybe one each, a tactic that each of you use to earn that business, to get that business, to secure it. Because there's a bunch of new agents here and I see everybody and I think I'm the only one scratching my head. Not that I'm not trying.
Yeah, if you don't have a lot of friends and family in the area, I would say one, I mean, you could join a team because, you know, that's one of the benefits is there could be leads there for you to call. It's just an option. Independently, the first thing I did when I was full-time was I did a lot of business networking. Every single day I was at a breakfast, a lunch and or a happy hour, Monday through Friday. Every single day it was like 10 a week altogether. And I'm talking to like 20 people at every event, I'm getting all their business cards, they're all going to my database. The ones I connect with, especially like the allied resources, like say, for example, an HR director, or, you know, something like that, that could actually potentially give you a lot of business. I'm taking them out to lunch or coffee, you know, or at least having that phone conversation, right? Building that relationship. So that's number 2. And then I have a third. Oh, open houses. So you should be in an open house every single weekend, Saturday and Sunday, if you're not taking buyers out showing houses. If you really want to hustle, because those are people showing up, like they're out there, they're looking. That's what you want to strike when the iron's hot and be that first agent that they keep in mind with that. So those are the 2 things I.
What is the percentage of for sale by owner?
It's over 90, it's like 90%.
Yeah, I would say right now, FISBOs would be your best bet, because there are a lot of people out there trying to do it themselves.
There's over 100 FISBOs between Baltimore City and Baltimore County alone as of yesterday. I looked up
Oh, there you go.
And right now, NARA is saying anywhere between 7 to 9% increase using an agent. They will net 7 to 9% increase using an agent and working on them.
And last weekend, this brokerage had 106 active listings and 7 open houses. There's a lot of opportunities to do open houses for listings in this brokerage.
So we're,
I would also say, I know we're running out of time, but I want to answer the question also with, similar to networking. There's a book that I read probably 10 years ago. It's a phenomenal book called Never Eat Alone. I can summarize it. You never really want to eat alone. It's by Keith Ferrazzi, brilliant guy. And I took it to heart for, I think, about a year. I made sure I had a meal with somebody, whether it's a friend, and you don't have, you know, if you're new to the area, you know, I still have no problem looking at the Baltimore Business Journal and reading an article about local business, seeing a name, looking them up, calling them, saying, I saw the article which you were in, very interesting. I would love to buy lunch and get your brain.
Just a quick, moving to Georgia, if you send out a message, if you were having a baby, what do we do? We send out a message, I'm expecting. Telling somebody you moved from wherever to Baltimore is a open advertisement of yourself to say, hey, help me to get adjusted to this area. Do you know, and I'm talking about your sphere of influence, do you know of anyone in Baltimore I can connect with? Now you are getting your sphere to help you to grow.
A realtor in my neighborhood, they use that tactic.
Well, I did get my elderly like
And other
Facebook. I
shit.
got like almost 300 of my Facebook friends
Yeah.
like it and subscribe to it. So that's my second one. Like, hey guys, I just moved.
You can still refer in the state that you lived in too.
No, I get it. Yeah, that's fine.
But even in that new community, so using neighborhood app, right? Agent came on and sparked the conversation. What's the best pizza in this neighborhood? And now you got people firing back and forth, just creating that conversation around that agent, literally stoking the fire. And now they're the person that they're going to giving answers and rating these places going back and forth. There's many different ways to become the person of knowledge, because now guess who's the pizza expert? Somebody who never lived there before, and in 1 week, they know all the pizza places to go to.
Volunteering with
Yeah.
communities.
Yeah, finding something that you
You're
enjoy
passionate
doing
about.
and finding the community that doesn't.
Well, now that we're wrapping up, we had a great conversation, and some of the nuggets that were dropped. One, we've talked extensively about lead gen, but let me ask this question: is finding out more about lead gen something we all want to know? We got a class. There we go.
And we are here, in here, every day, 9 to 11.
9 to
All it
11.
is, and we invite people to come out. People, I don't know, we shower daily. I don't know why we don't get more of y'all coming out, but come.
Right, can I share something about that? So it was, I want to say last week, don't forget that, but last week, Mark and his entire team were in here, 9 to 11, lead genning, and Mark is sitting there, and I put my laptop up there, I started lead genning with them, and Mark's sitting there, and you're calling for listings, right? And you're also calling connect your database. And there was a new agent in the room, and I saw the new agent taking notes, writing them down, just kind of like doing stuff, but let me listen over. And they walked away with so many just nuggets, just hearing what you said on the phone.
You learn together, we grow
Just
together.
wanna listen, yeah.
So not only can we put a class on for that, but if you want to know more about lead gen, you want to know more about conversations, 9 to 11 every day, you come in this room, I guarantee you will get something out of it. The next thing that was talked about, we said track your numbers. I don't know if you heard Mark mention several times that, hey, you know, we had an agent, he sent out 30 text messages, and we went through and we looked at the numbers and he got no responses. So he's tracking his numbers. Jennifer talked about her growth and how she tracks the numbers to get there. I asked Kim a question and she knew it off the top of her head because she tracks the numbers. I'll ask this question to the audience. Would learning how to track your numbers be something you'd be interested in that you want to show up for?
This class.
Can I hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we will put that out there so we can have a class about tracking numbers, how to go through it, how to learn. The next nugget that was dropped, education. Learning different things. We're reading the shift book right now. Would connecting with your colleagues, reading books with them to learn how to better develop yourself be something that's of interest to you? Guess what? We're gonna have a book club coming up soon. Look at the Facebook account. We will let you know the day and time that we all can get together, read, learn, and grow. Not only did we go through that, everybody look on the table in front of you.
This is amazing, guys. I still can't believe.
So,
What makes it
well,
amazing?
hold on. Let's sell this the real way that this actually came to our information. We love Bold and we want to go through it. But we were talking about, hey, there's trainings at KW that we haven't tapped into that we want to get that experience. Mark comes in, and if you've ever seen Mark really energized and energetic, comes and tells me, hey, we're taking a flight, we're going to Michigan, and we got a train we're going to be ready to go. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Why are we going to We're going to Glover U. I got tickets, we're going now, just be ready to go. I got little kids, I got a wife, I can't go. We got to figure something out. Let's just talk about this for a little bit. So we put it on the back burner, and then lo and behold, Alana comes up and says, guess what? I got a great training idea. We're bringing Glover U to the Market Center. Mark, why were you so excited about Glover U? What is so
Well,
great?
I was, and I still, even this morning.
Wait, you mean he's coming like in person?
Right, well, even this morning I had to, because I know we talked about it. And, you know, he's got a coaching program platform, it's a whole business. And so when I heard that we were, yeah, I mean, and he's a mega producer, I mean, just a dynamic guy. So much sharing that this guy does with the community. But when I thought we were having this, I just figured he was like sending somebody over here, and I was like, all right, well, it'll be good. But then I find out that it's actually not one of these people. It is actually Jeff Glover coming here every week for 6 weeks. Every week for 6 weeks, this guy is flying from the Michigan area to Maryland, to Baltimore, to be with us and to go over some like very impactful skill-based tactics. And it's not geared just for like a high producer. It really is geared for people at every level of their business. So I don't know. I don't get starstruck very often. I've had a chance to sit down with Jeff a couple times, just one-on-one, and he's such an open book. So I'm so excited about that. That's why.
And, I don't have any kids, so if you're hungry yet.
Well, on that note about leverage, I do want to make sure that it is mentioned. Was there anything else that you wanted to say about this?
No, okay.
For more information.
For more information,
QR code on it.
yeah.
So scan the QR code, it will give you the
I know
information.
we're running 10 minutes over. I want to make sure that this is said. There's a lot of people who have said, I don't have time. And we talk about time blocking and protecting our time and doing the things that are most dollar productive in our day. And one of the things that we have done recently is we have brought Julie in, and we have started bullpen management, for those who don't know, to be able to provide the leverage, to be able to free you up from having to do the ministerial, all the task stuff. Just so, and really the idea is not, look, you can take that time back and do whatever you want with it. Spend time with your family, go out, do whatever, be social, go to networking events, or lead gen. But the idea is that, having Julie here, she's been an incredible resource to be able to get time back in my day, to be able to focus on the things that I know will move the needle for my business.
Thank you. So I know you guys probably are running late, and I know that you have absorbed a ton of information today. I think one of the biggest things you could probably take away from today is all about that leverage. It's all about that having that extra time back. And as we see the market shift, these fundamentals become so much more pivotal to you being successful real estate agents. As we continue to go, you guys are going to see people fall by the wayside that are agents that don't have the fundamentals down. And something you need to focus on right now, and I mean right now, because this shift is continuing to come, is making your calls, doing your notes, setting appointments, getting with your clients face to face, belly to belly, okay? Call to call. That is our business, and that is the only way to succeed in this business. And the only way you're going to have time to do that is to get everything else off your plate, and that is what Bullpen is here to help you with. So I do transaction management. I've been in real estate for 7 years. I've managed something like 1,100 contracts in that time. So I work for a lot of high volume teams. So I have the goods for what you guys need, and I'm here to help.
Well, what's awesome about the leverage that's there. So we're not control freaks in this industry at all, right? We're not control freaks in our business, right? The one thing that we've always said or that I've said, and a lot of us say it as well, when we want to get leverage, nobody's going to do it the way that I do it. No one's going to care the way that I care. I'll tell you about who Julie is. Julie came to my office yesterday, damn near in tears, because she realized that we're not going to be able to help in other states the way that we thought we would. It's just more of a challenge than we could really take on. And she was damn near in tears because she wanted to be there and be of service and represent that client's business the way that we represent ourselves. That's who Julie is. If you want somebody who cares about your business the way that you do, Julie's the person.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming out. I hope you all picked something up.